Hey, this is Danielle from Banninglane, and I am here with your Scraplift Saturday video. And I'm starting off by showing you the inspiration piece that we're using this week, and also the layout that Deanna and I decided to scraplift from. Now, this inspiration piece is super cute. I love it. I love Christmas time, so I'm going to love any inspiration piece around that. But I really was inspired by the colors, the reds and the browns and the grays, and just the overall Christmas feel. This layout that we're scraplifting is from the super talented Hannah Lemieux, and I was super excited to work with it. It's a grid design, and Deanna and I both love those, so it was a perfect layout for us to scrap lift. Now I'm starting off by showing you the photo that I picked. This is just the photo that we used for our Christmas cards this year, and I always take that family picture and I scrapbook it. There's not a lot of journaling or anything with it. It's just a pretty page that I put in my scrapbook for that year. I'm going to be using a lot of products from this month's Click Kit just because I just got it in the mail and it had some of the reds and grays that I wanted to use, and I liked the embellishments that came with the kit, so that's where I pulled most of my products today. And you'll see here that I kind of skip forward. I worked a lot on this layout off camera, and so I just got to a point where I had a better idea of what I was going to do. Now, a couple things changed. I'm using an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper instead of a 12 by 12, and I kind of strayed from Hannah's grid design. I decided I wanted to use that full 4 by 6 photo instead of cutting it down into a square, and so I just decided to put that at the top of my photo, but then stick to the kind of grid design on the bottom, and so that's where I went with this layout. Now I'm just getting these base sort of squares put down. I guess they're more rectangles down on my page. And one thing I wanted to take from Hannah's layout is in her grid design, each of the squares were pretty jam-packed with embellishments and layers, and I think Hannah does a good job at that. I'm not quite as comfortable. My style is much more simple than Hannah's, but I did want to try to push my limits just a little bit and make my grid be a little bit more busy than I normally do. So how I decided to do that was to take some different layers of rectangles and layer some of them up behind each other, and then also just take scraps of paper and some of the embellishments that came in the kit and try to add more than I normally would. So I have this W that I cut from one of the papers that came in my Click Kit. Also, that word happiness came on a cut apart label sheet that came in the kit, and so I thought both of those were appropriate. Obviously, we are happy, and the W is for our last name. And I'm just getting those in place because I know I want to use them, so they're kind of a safe bet to get down on my page. But other than that, I'm just going to play around a little bit. I pulled out a lot of things that I thought I may want to use. I certainly don't use all of them, but I just keep adding until I think everything looks good on here. Now, I knew I wanted to add green to this layout because it's sort of a Christmassy layout, and I pulled these chipboard hearts from my stash for that purpose. And I pulled 3 of them just because that's sort of the magic number, and I'm just going to kind of fiddle with them until I like the placement of them. These triangles that I cut were from just one of the sheets of pattern paper. And I think that I want this pink heart just because it's kind of an off color and unexpected, and I tried out in a couple different spots, but I don't really like it. I don't know if it's just there's too many hearts on this layout, or I don't really like the one element of pink, but that heart does not end up making it on my final layout. So I'm just playing around with a few other embellishments on this layout. I'm really trying to add more embellishments and layers and interest to this layout to try to mimic Hannah's style, but I ultimately just have a hard time doing that. So I pretty much leave it like this and decide I need to just start gluing things down in place. And so I get these chipboard hearts stuck down, and then I get these triangles glued down and in place. I know that I want those up above my photo there. And then I decide to take this layout over to my sewing machine. So stitching on my layouts is sort of a go-to technique for me. So that seems like a super obvious choice, but especially on this layout where I'm wanting to add a ton of different textures and a ton of different layers, it just seemed like a really obvious choice. So I stitch on several different spots on this layout, and I also decided to take some of this glassine bag, this packaging, and layer that behind a couple of my squares. It seemed like a great way to add more dimension and more layers to this layout without getting too busy. And now I'm just sticking these last few embellishments down and in place. I decided to take that gray ampersand and layer it on top of those triangles. And now I'm going to take this flare and I'm going to stick it on that gray tag. I wish I centered it a little bit more in the tag, but off to the left hand side isn't bad either. And now I'm going to take this twine, and at first I think I want to tie a bow in each of the tags, again with adding more dimension to my layout. But after I tie the first bow, I decide that that's good enough and I don't want to add one to the second tag, so I leave it as that. So the last thing I do is I use my date stamp to get the date put on here. And then on Hannah's layout, she had used her pen to draw a frame around her journaling, I think. And so to mimic that, I just take my pen and I draw around my whole layout. And then I pretty much call this done. So I just wanted to thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to head on over to Deanna's video and watch her take on this layout if you haven't already. Also, be sure to check out our Facebook group and our Instagram and our Pinterest page. We have a lot going on all of those, and it's a lot of fun. I will put links to all of that down below. And also, if you choose to scrap lift Hannah's layout, we would definitely like to see your take on it. So don't forget to post a picture of your scrap lift on our Facebook group. All right, thanks guys, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.